On today's episode of the Going Deeper podcast, we are talking about general revelation. What's up, Fathom Church? Welcome to the Going Deeper podcast. This is your host, Kyle Knight, and I'm here with Pastor Chris in the podcast studio. Hey, this is another kind of mini episode in our deeper dive into Romans chapter 1. And today we are going to be talking about general revelation. So Chris, tell us where do we see it in Romans chapter 1, first of all, because that's what we're studying. And then what is general revelation? Like, what is Paul talking about here?
Yeah. So Paul doesn't actually use the words general revelation in Romans chapter 1, but what he does say is this in verse 19 and following: for what can be known about God is plain to them, because God has shown it to them. For his invisible attributes, namely his eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly perceived ever since the creation of the world, and things that have been made so that they are without excuse. So that's a dense little 3 verses right there. But theologians have kind of coined the term general revelation from that. And essentially what Paul is saying, and then what theologians are saying, is that God has revealed some stuff in general to everyone. Like whether, and so I use this on Sunday in the sermon, but I'll use it again. This is Wayne Grudem's definition from his systematic theology book, where he says general revelation comes through observing nature. So that's part of it, is observing nature. It comes through seeing God's direct influence in history. So seeing God's hand, seeing God's imprint in the timeline of history. And then through an inner sense of God's existence and his laws that he has placed inside every person. So that's like a morality piece, that there is a sense of God's existence in humanity, and also some moral law, like there's certain things that are universally true and untrue, a sense of right and wrong. Like, where did that come from? Those are different like arguments for the existence of God that come from general revelation. As in, you don't have to be a Christian or read your Bible or even hear the explicit gospel presented to you to understand and know, yeah, there must be something. There must be some sort of God. And that's why Paul says, so you're without excuse. Like everyone, even if you haven't been exposed to special revelation, which would be like the Bible would be special revelation, you still don't have an excuse, because general revelation has been at your fingertips your entire life. So that's an interesting, that's why Paul says God's wrath is for all unrighteousness, even those who don't even know that necessarily it's unrighteousness, because they don't have an excuse because of God's general revelation in this world.
Yeah. So to go through those again really quickly, nature, I know that's kind of I feel like in Christian circles, that's kind of an easy thing to say, of like, well, just like, look at the mountains. I see like God in the mountains. But that's what he's talking about, right? That's what this general revelation is that literally what we see is God's creation.
Yeah. And I think it's that, but it's also, it's not just like, oh, look at leaves and how intricate they are, and like, birds and animals, and like, yes, absolutely yes to those things. But here's just a couple of, I don't know, little things. So apparently this is some science stuff, and we've talked about this before in other sermons, but there's a thing called the Goldilocks principle, which is, life on Earth, the chances of life on Earth occurring are almost like infinitely small, because all of the things that would need to happen for life to occur, like the conditions need to be just right. That's that Goldilocks. It's not too hot. It's not too cold. It's just right. Well, the things that need to be just right in order for life to occur on this planet, let alone human life, are it's an infinitesimally small chance that those things would happen. Like the balance of oxygen and carbon dioxide in our atmosphere, the tilt of our planet, change that by like 1% or something like that, and everything's dead. The spacing between us and the moon, the spacing between us and the sun, the fact that water, H2O, is like the only substance that when it's the only liquid that when it's frozen, it's in its frozen state, it is lighter than in its liquid state. Because if it was heavier, like other frozen liquids, it would sink and then the whole world would freeze and we'd die. Like, I mean, all of these little things, like apparently the location of Jupiter, this is super, super geeky, but like apparently the location of Jupiter, if it wasn't where it was, there would be so many more asteroids. Like apparently Jupiter is so big that it takes so many hits that if it wasn't where it was in our solar system, we'd get pummeled with asteroids and everybody would be dead. So like there's all this
Jupiter's taking one for the team.
There's all this natural evidence that like that statisticians then will say the chances of this just randomly occurring are impossible.
Yeah.
It's almost impossible. Like, and you're like, well, the universe is pretty big. And so like, the odds are it would happen somewhere. No, statisticians are like, no, it's an impossibility that it just randomly happened. That's the argument from nature that like, there's something.
There's some I always hear that it points to some intelligent being.
Right. So you don't have an excuse. Like there's something that put this thing together. So that's and
then historical.
Yeah, and historical. I mean, this is where you start to deal with like purpose. So things like morality, things like love, things like art and creativity, things that can't be necessarily explained by the natural creative order, things that Darwinian evolution should have weeded out of us long ago, are still things that we're dealing with today. And so historical things, those things, they point to, this is more of like if the first argument is actually the cosmological argument, that like the cosmos exists. The fact that this exists is pointing to something. But then you move into what's known as philosophers call it the teleological. Telos is the Latin word for purpose, or and so the idea here is like the fact that human beings seem to have some sort of historical purpose that we're wrestling with, that we're not just clumps of cells that have, evolved to a certain point, but there's purpose and we're searching for meaning. Teleological argument is that like, why do we even care about these things? Right. Like, why are these things even true about us? That's a crazy argument, but it's a very reasonable argument when you start talking about like the purpose of things. So that's a general revelation. Like, you don't have to read the Bible to be like, why do we struggle with purpose in creative order? Like here's the example. My dog Mabel, she hates squirrels. She hates squirrels. Now, most of the time she can't catch a squirrel, but imagine with me if Mabel gets out in the backyard, sees a squirrel, chases it down, grabs a hold of it with her jaws, bites down, breaks its neck, and kills the squirrel. Okay. Mabel just killed that squirrel. That's a natural thing. But Mabel is not like a human being, because I remember the first time I shot a squirrel and I felt kind of bad about it. I mean, I legit shot the squirrel and I was like, oh, it probably has little squirrel babies. I kind of felt bad about it. Mabel's not like laying in her dog bed at night, losing sleep over the fact that she mauled a squirrel. But that's because human beings have something in them in history that's different than, that points to a moral compass that's not the same. Yeah. So there's purpose and stuff like that in us. That's a general revelation pointing to some higher creative being.
Well, and then that kind of goes into the third one, of which I really like, in talking about the feelings, the senses that we have in ourselves of morality, all these other kind of things of like and this is the argument I hear when I watch videos of like non-believers and everything like that, of like knowing what is good and what is evil, and where did you get that from?
Right. So where did that all come from?
Yeah.
This is called the argument from desire. And C.S. Lewis kind of famously has this quote. I'll read the quote. I was going to quote it in my sermon, but I didn't have time. So here's the quote. A baby. This is from Mere Christianity. A baby feels hunger. Well, there is such a thing as food. A duckling wants to swim. Well, there is such a thing as water. Men feel sexual desire. Well, there is such a thing as sex. If I find in myself a desire which no experience in this world can satisfy, the most probable explanation is that I was made for another world. And so it's a brilliant C.S. Lewis quote. But all of these are examples of general revelation. We've got this desire in our hearts. We look around and we see purpose in our histories. We even look up at the stars and marvel at the grandiosity of creation. And all of those things, Paul says, are indications that will leave us without excuse that, yes, there is a God. And so that's why I said, and this was a Keller idea, but that's why I said in the sermon, Paul would be like, yeah, we know. Right. We don't have an excuse, because at some subconscious level in all that we have experienced as humans, we know there's something, and we need special revelation to show us what that something is.
Talk about special revelation a little bit.
Yeah. So special revelation is really, the primary example is
Yeah.
the scriptures.
Yeah.
But like, you might have an encounter with God through prayer, through worship. But I would say the best place for authoritative special revelation is the Bible. That God has given us special revelation through his son, Jesus, as recorded in the Holy Scriptures, preserved by the Holy Spirit for thousands of years, that we might have this direct revelation from God, this special revelation. So while I think you need special revelation, there is still a level at which, very generally, even if you've never heard of Jesus of Nazareth, even if you've never read the Bible or been exposed to that, you can still say, there's got to be something. There's got to be something more than just, I'm a clump of cells floating through the universe for a short period of time.
So, Pastor Chris, how the awareness of both of these things, the awareness of both general revelation and special revelation, how can the awareness of this deepen our worship with God? How should it deepen our worship of God?
Yeah. I mean, as a Christian, it just firms up my faith. Like, we've been exposed to special revelation, so we believe in Jesus, but then you look around at time, at space, and at humanity, and you say, this is where you say, oh, like, how can't you believe in some of this? But and I don't want to use that as like a judgy idea, but it's also just like, it stirs up in me praise. Like, when I look and I'm like, look at what God has done. Look at what my Father created. This is a beautiful world, and I get to experience this even as a broken, sinful person. I mean, it should stir us up to worship. It should firm up our faith. It's an evidence of God. It's a kindness of God. It might also be something that stirs in you a desire for apologetics and evangelism. Like, this is something that you might be able to lean into in your conversations with your friends and coworkers and neighbors, people in your spheres who don't believe in Jesus. Like, there is some presuppositional arguments that you might be able to use as an apologetic for the faith. But I think this should stir up our hearts. And then also, I do think this should potentially drive us with a little bit more urgency to our unsaved friends, because there isn't an excuse. Ignorance is not you don't get that trump card in the end. And so all the more it should stir us towards affection for Christ and desire to serve our friends and our family and our unsaved people around us with the truth of the gospel.
That's good.
So, general revelation, it's
good stuff.
It's important. Yeah,
it is important. It's good. Well, thank you, Pastor Chris, for that discussion. Again, in Romans 1, thanks for church for listening to this, and we'll catch you on the next episode.